Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Truck. Sal Vetri and Behrens. I'm Jason Fitz. Just when you thought you could re-gift your favorite fantasy team, we're here to help you on what Sal has informed me is National Re-Gifting Day. It's the fantasy semifinals. Jam-packed weekend of NFL action. We're one step closer to the coveted fantasy championship. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll get you ready for all of the action. Re-gifting, Sal, is there something you like? Is there something you want to re-gift? Anything you've ever re-gifted?
No, I mean, it's just the day, but yeah, so sometimes times are hard. Sometimes you got to get creative out there, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with re-gifting every once in a while.
That's fair. Andy Behrens, I would re-gift you the Raiders season I've had to watch this year, or frankly, my own personal fantasy football season. This weekend gets easier though, right? Like, hey, all we have is Saturday games, and we got Sunday games. It's fine. We're all keeping up.
The only way this weekend is going to get easier is if I get like a 3 for 35 no touchdown line out of Cortland Sutton tonight. That would make the weekend really easy. That's what I'm rooting for.
3 for 35 might not match some of my prop predictions, so we'll have to battle on that. You guys can get involved, obviously, on the chat. Ask FFL. Drop some questions in the YouTube chat. We'll get them answered as we go, and we are here for the next 30 minutes. Why? Because it's Thursday night, which means Thursday night football is upon us, and we got a good one. We actually have a good one. Sometimes I tell you that, and I'm lying to you. I promise tonight I'm not. The Broncos 9-5, taking on the Chargers. Almost called them the Clippers, 8-6. We're taking that one in California. The Chargers favored by 2.5. The over-under on this 41.5. We've got some actives, inactives to get you caught up on. A couple of names here. Jaleel McLaughlin, inactive. Will Dissly, inactive. I think we're pretty used to both of those. Let's get the players to watch. Andy Behrens, not from the Clippers. None of us want to watch that. From this game, give me your eye. Who are you keeping an eye on?
Oh, I gotta start with Ladd McConkey. He enters tonight's game with 63 catches for 873 yards on the year. Those numbers exceed his production in any collegiate season. He's already in uncharted territory for himself statistically with 3 games to play. He's going to finish this year around 80 catches and 1,100 yards. Just an unreasonably good rookie season from him. McConkey arrived in the league as a really smooth route runner. He's been very good in contested situations too this year. His passer rating when targeted, 118.6. Basically, the best course of action in the Chargers offense this season is a pass to Ladd McConkey. That's what works. You might be worried about a potential visit to Pat Surtain Island this week. But that would require pretty unusual deployment by Denver. McConkey has actually been in the slot over 70% of the time this year on passing snaps, and that is an area that Surtain rarely visits. Now, Denver has been good against basically all variety of receivers, including slots, but it's pretty unlikely that McConkey is going to get shadow treatment. Again, his targets have been the best thing going for the Chargers offense, so I would expect another 8 to 12.
When we talk players to watch, usually that's a positive, and usually I'm a positive guy, but I'm wearing the Grinch hoodie today. So let me be the Grinch for a moment and just remind you that sometimes players to watch are players to watch for bad reasons. Also known as the Denver Broncos running back room. All of them, any of them. In this matchup particularly, you got no love coming. If you got a Broncos running back, you are done. The Chargers held Denver running backs to 44 yards on 11 carries back in week 6. The only way they got any rushing yards was really through Bo Nix. And some stats for you. The Chargers have the best red zone defense in the NFL, touchdown rate of 40%. That's about 17% better than the league average. And they have the lowest running back touchdown rate. So you got bad running backs taking on a defense that doesn't give up much to running backs in general. That, my friends, sounds like players to watch in the Grinchish way. I'm not sure that anybody's heart's going to grow 2 sizes in this one. I think everybody's just going to admit defeat when it comes to any of these Denver running backs. By the way, there's no way to figure out who's going to get the share of the work either. It's an abject nightmare there. It's a nightmare before Christmas. All right, Sal, give me what you got. What are you looking for in players here?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be the Denver backfield, but it's probably going to be the passing attack. And I'm looking at Cortland Sutton, who's just been one of the best fantasy wide receivers all season long for fantasy managers. And last week, the fantasy playoffs start, and he almost lets you down. A guy who's been so red hot the last couple of months, but on the final offensive play of the game for the Broncos, he connects with Bo Nix for a 20-yard touchdown. He hits 12-plus fantasy points for the 7th straight game. And entering that contest in week 15, Cortland Sutton had 70 or more receiving yards in 7 straight games. The only receiver to do that. Well, now that broke last week, but he still got you there in terms of fantasy production, thanks to that touchdown. And now he comes into a matchup against the Chargers, which the run defense, as Fitz just said, has been great. Their secondary has been pretty hit or miss, whether that's injuries or matchups. Last week, we saw the Tampa Bay Bucks. Multiple receivers got to 75-plus yards against them. Mike Evans went off for multiple touchdowns, 150 yards. Sutton comes into this matchup tonight. I'm watching him not only tonight, but next week as well in a matchup against a Bengals bottom-tier secondary in the fantasy championships. I think Sutton, the past 2 months, has been a league winner, and I think that's going to continue in these next 2 games.
All right, so let me get this question. And Dust Fan asks, happy Thursday. Pick 2 between Sutton, Neighbors, Hill, Hubbard. What do you think, Sal? Sutton, Neighbors, Hill, Hubbard, pick 2.
Between these 2 options, I'm going to go with Neighbors. It's another really good matchup. Even the quarterback situation, you're going to be an 8-point underdog, probably throw 35 times. Another dozen-plus targets for Neighbors has been good when he gets that volume this year. And I'm going to go with Sutton for the reasons I just mentioned all season long. Bo Nix has struggled. 5 interceptions the last couple of games, but he continues to target and have a high efficiency when targeting Cortland Sutton. I like the matchup for at least another 7 to 9-plus targets tonight.
Throwing a little curveball here. Just want to shout out Zen Dog Jeff. He says, greetings, Fitz and the gang. I got no questions. But you want to wish you and the crew a great holiday season. Look at that. Just getting holiday greetings. Man, you can tell everybody's feeling that sort of love. The holidays are upon us. And Dog Jeff, we wouldn't have a show if you didn't watch. So we appreciate all you guys giving us a little holiday love. Let's move on to bring in some noise, bring in some funk, bring in the props. We'll give you some props we like coming into this. And Sal, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, I should be wearing the Grinch hoodie. Of course, the unders have to be in play tonight. I'm looking at Quentin Johnston for under 42.5 receiving yards. Now, if you look at his game logs, you'll see, he's been over this number in back-to-back games, but that needs a little context. He's gone over it in week 14 and 15. Week 14, there was no Ladd McConkey, so Johnston was more of a priority in the passing attack, saw a lot more targets, first reads from Justin Herbert. Then last week, he got there, but he had 45 yards. It took 10 targets to get that in a really good matchup against the Bucs, and he's still barely getting there because McConkey came back, took over the target share as he's done the majority of this season and for the entire season on a whole. So now I'm looking at this matchup tonight against the Broncos, one of the best secondaries. I would say definitely a top 10, probably top 5 secondary in the NFL, where Patrick Surtain looked banged up last week, but he practiced in full. He's going to go. Probably going to see a lot of Surtain on the outside, especially when McConkey's in the slot against Quentin Johnston. And when Johnston has faced a top 10 secondary this year, it's happened 4 times. He only averages 29 receiving yards per game. And that's factoring in a couple of broken plays in those games where he had some 15 to 20 plus yard touchdowns. So I think on a short week in a tough matchup, Ladd McConkey is only getting healthier and he continues to be the priority here. I'm going to be fading these receiving yards on Quentin Johnston. We're really just fading one long deep reception for him all night.
If we could pay for the rights for Mean One, Mr. Grinch, we would sing that for you, but we can't do that, Sal. All right, Andy, bring us some joy, bring us some Christmas spirit. Here, give me a prop you like.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back into the world of weird low quarterback rushing props here, and I'm gonna go over 11.5 rushing yards for Justin Herbert. First of all, he's been a much more proactive runner over the second half of the season. He's topped this rushing total in 4 of his last 6 games. He's also averaging 23.8 rushing yards per game over his last 8, so a little bit over twice this total. Herbert has just been a sneaky effective rusher for some time now on the season, and he's not a total statue. Also, plenty of not-so-mobile quarterbacks have hit this number against Denver, including Aaron Rodgers, Gardner Minshew, Spencer Rattler. It is entirely doable. As we've learned, I'm also just partial to these totals that players can clear in a single play. I think that probably happens here. We are in must-win territory for the Chargers, and I think we're going to see the most aggressive version possible of Herbert in this one.
I love this call by you, and frankly, your quarterback rushing prop fascination is a little bit like I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Like, I shouldn't love the song, but I do, and I can't stop listening to it when it comes on. Like, I love the way you describe these every single week with so much joy, and then I wonder why I didn't think of it. All right, I'll give you an easy prop, and I'm really going to piggyback on Sal here. With Cortland Sutton, he gave you a bunch of numbers that I had written on my fancy note card, so I'm not going to give them to you again, but I will give you one extra stat on Cortland Sutton that I think is interesting. Right now, the Chargers defense is giving up 115 plus air yards in 3 straight games. This is an opportunity for Sutton to go off on the worst defense for deep passing touchdowns in the league. Going to be some big hauls here. I think Sutton over 5.5 receptions is pretty easy. Frankly, I also like Sutton on the over for yardage, and I like Sutton on the over for touchdowns. I'm all in on Cortland Sutton having a big goal game, but for the official record here, 5.5 receptions, which, by the way, he's done at least 6 catches or a touchdown in every game since week 7. So I feel pretty good about Cortland Sutton over 5.5 catches. All right, let's move on, and we can play a little Believe, Make Believe in honor of Santa Claus. Believe, Make Believe. We got 2 Saturday games this week, so we're going to play a little Believe, Make Believe with the Texans and Chiefs. That's a Saturday 1 p.m. game. Chiefs favored by 3.5. The over-under on this one, 41.5. The Chiefs 13-1. I just want to remind everybody real quick while we sit here and spend every week talking about what's wrong with the Chiefs, that the Chiefs are 13-1. All right, Believe, Make Believe. Sal, give me something that's make believe for you in this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Chiefs backfield here, and I think that Kareem Hunt actually forcing a split backfield with Isaiah Pacheco in this game and moving forward is complete make-believe. Now, we saw Isaiah Pacheco return on Black Friday against the Raiders, and he was limited coming off of a pretty serious injury, as you would expect, but he looked pretty efficient. He had a 34-yard run in that game, showed his explosiveness, and that carried over into Week 14 when he earned 70% of the backfield carry. So it looked like heading into the fantasy playoffs, you're stashing Isaiah Pacheco in your IR on your bench for so long. He's going to be in your starting lineup, and he let you down. He splits the backfield last week evenly with Kareem Hunt. But here's the deal. I think this is a make-believe because I think it's a bit of a hot hand approach. You look at that game last week, Pacheco started. He played the first 2 drives like he did the week before. Hunt came in and on his first carry, got 11 yards. Second carry, 7 yards. So it was a hot start off the bat. He doesn't play the next 2 drives. He gets a 12-yard carry and another 7-yard carry. So this is something, 10 yards per carry, he was not doing at any point this season, Kareem Hunt. It was a very short sample, and that led to him seeing more second half usage. Only a couple of carries, but it was enough to make this a 50-50 backfield. I think in this week's matchup, we see Pacheco go back to seeing nearly 70% of the backfield opportunities. As a home favorite against a struggling Texans defense, especially the defensive line, I'm starting Pacheco this week if you're in any 12-team leagues with the flex spot. I think he gets back, and I think Kareem Hunt goes back to being a backup.
All right, so that's a little make-believe. Andy, you don't have the beard, the fat, or the suit, but we'll let you be Santa Claus here. Give us something to believe in.
Well, first of all, I'm not regifting what Sal just gave us. I need a big week out of Pacheco. I'll take it. I am also a believer in Hollywood Brown's potential impact on Kansas City's offense. He's been a full participant in practice this week. He's coming off a shoulder injury. So this is not a return from like a knee or a high ankle or something that would compromise his explosiveness. I think we can expect him to be the normal Hollywood Brown. Patrick Mahomes this season has attempted 40 throws of 20-plus yards, and he's completed only 11 of them, with 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And those numbers were even worse last year on deep throws. You know who can operate pretty well downfield and separate and track throws? It's Hollywood Brown. He's something of a specialist in that area. He's been a 90-catch, 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL, too. So this is not another gadgety return specialist or some sort of one-trick receiver. This is a legit wide receiver with real vertical ability. Serious playmaker. He can cook man coverage. I just think this is a perfect pairing of receiver and quarterback. He belongs in the wide receiver flex conversation, I think, immediately. I'd play him this week in a bunch of spots. This is a potentially transformative addition to the Chiefs' offense.
Love it. Sal, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. I won't make you sing this, but keep the belief going. Give us something you believe in this matchup. You can sing it if you want.
And yeah, I believe that the Texans' run game is just going to continue to struggle this week. We've seen it really all season long, but it's kind of gotten hidden by the fact that the passing attack has also struggled, whether that's play calling, protection issues, wide receivers going down with injuries. But earlier this year, when Joe Mixon went out with an injury, gets hurt in week 2 with his ankle, misses a month, the Texans were the least efficient running game in the entire NFL. Now, he returned, and he's been propping you up in fantasy thanks to touchdowns, overall massive workloads, but their efficiency still ranks bottom 5 in the league. And I don't think that's going to change this week. We just saw as recent as last week, the offensive line in the run game and also the passing game is still a major concern. They still have multiple tackles and guards and even centers right now on their injury report heading into week 16. And that's not the place you want to be on the road against the Chiefs, who right now allow the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, the 3rd fewest rushing yards per game. It's tough to say you're going to be sitting Joe Mixon based on what he's done all season long. You're probably not sitting him in any league formats, but you might have to temper your expectations because this is worst case scenario in maybe one of the worst efficiency run games in the league.
Andy Behrens, you can close us out. Go full Krampus. Something that's make-believe for you.
Oh, you never go full Krampus. Unfortunately, I think that the notion of Tank Dell as a startable fantasy receiver is make-believe. I thought he was a pretty thrilling player as a rookie, honestly, and sometimes we still see those flashes. He had a 15-yard carry last week that looked great, but the volume at this point almost non-existent. 2 targets last week, 4 the week prior, 5 the week before that. That's just not playable. Dalton Schultz is getting more attention. Other secondary receivers are drawing chances. Dell's yards per route run has really cratered this year, all the way down to 1.3. He's seen the same number of targets year to date that he did all last season, and he has 5 fewer touchdowns, 140 fewer receiving yards, and again, no recent targets. He's still rostered in over 80% of Yahoo leagues, and that's probably just a reflection of the time of year, right? People have dropped from contention and they're not maintaining rosters. I get it. I think he can be launched in almost any redraft league, and we can just try again next season.
All right, guys, let's get to some Make Your Pick. We're going to help some of our fine users out with some questions that they have submitted. Got a bunch in the YouTube chat we'll get in throughout the course of the show also. The first pick, though, the first question, I should say, comes from Tibetan Mastiff. Interesting name. Also says standard scoring. Hey, Tibetan, we got to work on the initials we use for that. Need 2 wide receivers. Lamb, Jennings, Jameson Williams, D. Hopkins, or newly acquired Jay McMillan. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, the first name I'm going to here is definitely CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's been one of the most productive fantasy wide receivers all season. First off, he's just been able to stay healthy even with Dak Prescott out. And recently, we're seeing the offense actually start to adapt to Cooper Rush. He's playing a little bit better, so I'm not jumping off of him now, especially in a very strong matchup against a Bucs secondary that just leaks points and yards to wide receivers. Then I'm looking at the rest of these. It is a tough decision, but I believe that Juwan Johnson is the only other name here that I feel pretty confident can be the #1 receiver on his team, because since the bye week for the 49ers, that's exactly what he's been. He's earned a 30% target share, ahead of George Kittle, ahead of Deebo Samuel on this team. He's just hit some pretty unlucky situations the last couple of weeks. Last Thursday night, it was a bad weather game. 3 weeks ago in Buffalo, it was a snow game. Sandwiched in between there, though, a multi-touchdown game where he operates as the #1 receiver in good weather conditions. It's facing Miami this week. It's going to be good weather conditions as of right now. Miami's secondary's been up and down. We just saw them allow over 300 yards to Aaron Rodgers. Give me CeeDee Lamb and Juwan Jennings.
Love it. All right, the next question comes from Steve Katra. Steve says, start 2, McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, ETN. All right, what do you think of this? Sorry, this one goes to Andy.
Yeah, we're definitely not starting Travis Etienne at this stage. Tank Bigsby is pretty well ahead of him, I think, as an early down rusher. It's a little bit surprising to even see his name here, but that's probably a reflection of how disappointed you are in Cooper Kupp's performance last week. I would not start 2 Washington Commanders skill players. That's not going to happen for me. I'm going to go Terry McLaurin here, and I recognize the difficulty of the matchup against Philly. They've just been moving him around a fair amount lately, and I think that they are, I need this. I hope that the right answer here is that they move him around enough to hide him from Mitchell a little bit, get him plenty of opportunities. He was quiet in the first meeting between these teams, but he's so good this year, and he's the clear #1 option for Washington right now. So I'm going there, and then it's between Allen and Kupp, and I'm going to go back to Kupp. I realize very quiet game last week. I paid the price. You paid the price. I understand it. Keenan Allen did have a good game against Detroit the last time they played. Not a huge target total. I'm going to lean Kupp, though. He's still somebody, it's such a consolidated offense. We know where the ball is going to go. I still think it's a nice bounce back spot for him.
All right, the next question comes from Dennis. Dennis asks, half PPR, start 2 of JSN, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Walker, Charbonnet, Tyrone Tracy. It should be noted, by the way, Walker, a full participant in practice today. Charbonnet was limited. I want you to have that context, Sal. So what do you think?
Yeah, first off, I mean, great job drafting, playing the waivers, trades. This is a loaded roster to be sitting potentially 3 of these guys. I'm starting right away with A.J. Brown, though. He's a top 5 wide receiver this week. He's a set it and forget it for me basically every single week, especially in this matchup. You can throw on Washington. There's a squeaky wheel narrative, and he gets fed last week for 11 targets, 110 yards. And then I'm actually going to go with JSN. Even with Kenneth Walker fully practicing today, I got to go to JSN. He's quietly been one of the most productive and consistent wide receivers. Over 18 PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. In the last 7 games, he's had at least 12 fantasy points. A 30% target share during that stretch leads this team. And the one thing that you can do on Minnesota is you can throw on them because you can't run on them. So I think we're going to see close to 40 pass attempts, if not more, for Geno Smith. Another double-digit target threatening game for JSN. So give me JSN and A.J. Brown.
All right. Let's get a question in here from the YouTube chat. Adam D says, hey, fellas, looking for some advice. Pick two: Adams, McConkey, Brian Thomas. All right. So Andy Behrens, pick two: Adams, McConkey, Brian Thomas.
Yeah, this is another situation where we just have great options, right? I can't sit Brian Thomas right now. He's seen double-digit targets in 3 straight games. Are they the highest quality targets in the league? Perhaps not, but he's coming off a game with 10 catches, a couple of touchdowns. He's just been dominant, and they finally decided we're just going to build this whole passing game out of that guy, and it's working. So I'm playing him, and I'm probably going Davante Adams is really close because I actually really like Ladd McConkey. And again, he's been the best idea in the Chargers offense, but I would lean Davante Adams here. Another guy coming off just a monster game, incredible performance, and we know that he is going to be just absolutely in the crosshairs for Rodgers. Probably another guy who's going to see 10 targets.
All right, we'll get more of your questions coming up in just a minute, but first let's take a look at the weekend injury report. Got a lot out here, so we'll start with the Saturday game. Rashad Bateman with the foot injury at this point was seen wearing a boot today, so that's significant. George Pickens out with the hamstring injury. Before we go anywhere on this one, Sal, how concerned should we be about the Ravens and Rashad Bateman?
Yeah, I mean, beginning of this year, I would say not concerned at all, but he's having a breakout campaign. I mean, a couple of more good games, and he's going to threaten an 850, 900-yard season. They're not going to have Deontay Johnson either this week. He's already sitting out, so potentially an increase for Tylan Wallace, maybe a Nelson Aguilar. That's not great if you're the Ravens having to fill in for those guys, but they have a Zay Flowers. They have multiple tight ends. Maybe we see some more 2 tight end sets if Bateman was to miss. If he does play, you're probably not touching him in anything deeper than a 14-team league or so, but he has been really good as of late. We'll see what the injury reports say. I think it's a little bit of an uptick for Flowers in the tight ends.
Andy, let me get a question in here real quick from the YouTube chat. Pug Dieterson, love that name. Happy holidays, fellas. Should I start Freiermuth with Pickens out or Kincaid with Josh Allen balling out? What do you think?
Oh, this is a good question, and they're close in the ranks. It's going to be Pat Freiermuth for me. He's got touchdowns in 3 straight games. Great touchdown catch a week ago that he basically ripped away from a defender. I think they've really built trust between him and Russell Wilson. Another week with Pickens sidelined means an uptick in targets for Freiermuth. So he's slightly in there. I like them both, though.
All right, keep the questions coming. We'll get more answered in a minute. More injury notes that you need to know about. For the Sunday, Monday games, we got some did not practices here. We got Tony Pollard with an ankle injury, David Njoku still with a hamstring injury, Jalen Waddle with a knee injury, obviously significant. We'll keep the list going now. Some other big names. You've got Isaac Warendo. Obviously, we've all fallen in love with keeping track of everything. He's got the hamstring, doubtful. Cade Otton with the knee. And then Alvin Kamara is listed as doubtful right now with the thigh injury. So, again, remember to join us Sunday morning because we'll get to the latest on all of this as we go into a key Sunday. But don't forget, Saturday games also. So keep your head on a swivel for all of it. Let's turn to our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. The late game on Saturday is a doozy. Steelers headed to Baltimore. Take a look at the board on this one. The Ravens favored by 6. The over-under on this 45.5. And gentlemen, when we start talking about names to watch on here, game changers for me, it's going to be Derrick Henry. Now, bit of a slump, obviously. Derrick Henry coming off of a less than impactful performance against the Giants. I think we all know that. Everybody thought there would be massive numbers for him. That was not the case. Also, he goes into this game on a touchdown slump. The question is, when you start talking about fantasy game changers, I guess I could look at this either way. They're going to have to get more of Derrick Henry. The question is, over the last few weeks, is the decline in production and points based on anything other than just the way the game situation is played out? To me, when you're looking at a Steelers defense that you know can get after the passer and you're trying to limit some of TJ Watt's effectiveness, you're going to have to run the football. So even though a lot of the numbers are down on Derrick Henry, this to me is a prove it moment for Derrick Henry. It's going to be a big moment for Todd Monken and that offense for the Ravens. I think Derrick Henry breaks out. Sal, when you say fantasy game changers, what do you think in this one?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Ravens passing attack and Zay Flowers here. It's been an interesting year for Zay Flowers. I mean, there was a time earlier this year from weeks 5 to 9 where Flowers had topped 100 yards in 4 out of 5 games. He was well on pace to set the Ravens wide receiver record for yards in a season, which is currently held, here's your bar trivia for the day, by Michael Jackson, 1,201 yards in 1996. Flowers right now needs 95 yards per game, so he could still do that to top that record for the Ravens, but He hasn't topped 75 receiving yards in 5 straight games. He's only topped 60 receiving yards twice during that time. And honestly, like when you break it down and you look at what's happening, his role's basically stayed the same. Maybe he's working a smidge more downfield, but it's nothing dramatic. He's earning nearly 30% of the targets the past month. He's running close to 100% of the routes. So he's on the field. He's seeing target volume. I think it's just this weird pocket the last month where he's not scoring as many touchdowns. He's just missing maybe once or twice a game on a deep play that he was hitting on earlier this season. I don't think there's much to panic with here. Now, the matchup this week is concerning. It is a tough matchup against the Steelers. We saw that the last time he faced them. Just 2 catches, 39 yards, did find the end zone, but there were a couple explosive plays on those 2 catches for Flowers. This is a spot where they're 6-point home favorites, projected for 26 points, the Ravens this week. If you're the number 1 receiver for Lamar Jackson, projected for 26 points, one of the highest totals on the week, maybe even no Rashad Bateman, as we discussed earlier, I'm going to have to say that you're going to have an impact on this game. So Zay Flowers is my game changer for this week.
It's a great call. I'm just wondering why we didn't get a hee-hee or any reference to a moonwalk when you said Michael Jackson. It's fine. It's fine. Andy Behrens, your fantasy game changer.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure that I had Michael Jackson on a roster in '96. I'm just swimming in nostalgia over here. That's a great. I was
born in '96.
So.
Born in 96.
I am in fact an old human. You guys picked actual stars for this segment. I guess that's one way you could go. I'm going to go with Pat Freiermuth, the guy that we just talked about a few minutes ago. This is a tight end who's still actually available in about 1/3 of Yahoo leagues, despite having reached the end zone in each of his last 3 games. As we've discussed before, unless you landed on, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Trey McBride, or Jonnu Smith this year, you are in the tight end wilderness and you've been playing the waiver wire. There are very few right answers, but Freiermuth has actually been one of them lately. No George Pickens again means an uptick in targets for him. He's in a great matchup this week against a generous pass defense. The Ravens have allowed the 6th most receiving yards to opposing tight ends on the season. Freiermuth has drawn 16 targets over his last 3 games. Some of these touchdown receptions, again, particularly the one last week, are the sorts of plays that really build trust between a quarterback and a receiver. Any game involving Baltimore, basically, this year has shootout potential, and Freiermuth has become just a circle of trust receiver for Russell Wilson. I think you can start him with confidence here as a top 10 tight end.
All right, let's grab the hot sauce and get spicy. It's time for some bold predictions for week 16. We'll give you things you never thought you'd hear. It'll be absolutely mind-blowing, except for Andy Behrens, which will be right down the middle. Sal, what do you got for us as your bold prediction?
Yeah, James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals was the RB1 on the week last week, and I think he's going to do it again and be the RB1 once again this week, top 100 yards, have a couple of touchdowns. Don't look now, but James Conner is currently on pace, and maybe we have to knock on wood here, for the first time in his career to play every single regular season game. And despite turning 30 years old in a couple of months, relatively old for the running back position, it being the end of the year, you might think, oh, he's slowing down a little bit. Not at all. He currently leads the NFL in broken tackle rate. He's top 5 in breakaway runs, and he's coming off of arguably his 2 best fantasy days the last 2 weeks, including llast week where he was the RB1. 138 total yards and 2 touchdowns against the Patriots, and the matchup gets even better this week. The Panthers allow the most rushing yards per game, the 2nd most rushing touchdowns. You can look at any split you want this year. The last 6 games, starting running backs are averaging 125 rushing yards per game against Carolina. You look last week, Rico Dotto had a career high 149 rushing yards. Everybody gets there against Carolina. I think Connor's going to do it again to the tone of 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns, another 30 points, and the RB1 overall. He's going to be a league winner. The playoff schedules has been great. It will continue to be great next week. James Conner is an RB1.
I mean, that's a good prediction. I don't know how bold. Andy Behrens, give us bold. Come on, just take us home.
Hey, listen, I'm going to give you something that has not happened yet this season. So by definition, I think that's bold. Trey McBride week, okay? It's finally arrived. I think it's here. At least I hope it's arrived, because I have a desperate fantasy need for McBride to finally break out of the wildest touchdown drought that anybody has ever seen. McBride, of course, without a receiving TD this year, on 89 catches and 116 targets. He's been the best player in the league, basically between the 1-yard lines, and he cannot score. They tried a little shovel pass to him last week, and he became the only tight end to not score on a shovel pass. Unbelievable. He's the overall tight end 3 on the season without a receiving touchdown, which is just crazy. This week, though, he runs into a defense that has allowed a league-high 11 touchdowns to opposing tight ends in Carolina. Noah Gray had a couple of scores against him. Foster Moreau has a couple of scores against Carolina. If McBride just sees his usual double-digit target total in this one, and he can't score, he might actually be cursed. The bold prediction here is that not only does McBride break the drought, he then re-breaks it. He gets in the end zone twice.
That is bold, my friend. Look, I'll quickly tell you my bold prediction. Anthony Richardson headed back to the bench. 67% of his total fantasy points last week came in the first drive. He stinks right now. And you can stink against some teams. You can't stink against the Titans. He's going to stink against the Titans. That's going to get him sent back to the bench. You stink against the stinky team, you end up on the bench. That's where Anthony Richardson will be. I pity everybody, including myself, that has him on their roster that thought there were going to be big things this year. All right, hurry up offense time. We're going to do a little overtime here. We're just running through the clock because you got questions we want to answer. We'll put 25 seconds on, and we will charge through these melonheads. Start Patrick Taylor or Craig Reynolds in flex, half 0.5 rush attempt, Amari Cooper or Hollywood, half PPR. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, that 0.5 rush attempt matters here. It looks like Horrendo is not going to be playing. Patrick Taylor is going to be the option between Craig Reynolds and him. And then Amari Cooper and Hollywood. The answer should be Amari Cooper. But if you're in a game where there's 90 points and you're not even contributing, I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown. He should be a full go, it seems like, this weekend for the Chiefs.
Love it. All right, the next one goes to Andy Behrens. Steve says, need by tonight. Knicks at Chargers Thursday Night Football. Rodgers versus Rams, 4-point passing touchdown. Opponent has Devontae Adams. We're not supposed to worry about opponent. Andy gave us a lecture. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really tempted to go through that monologue again. We can't worry about matching up with opponents, okay? There's nothing you can do to cancel an opponent's point total. That drives me crazy. Don't think about it. I would play Bo Nix here. I get it. It's close. I would play Bo Nix. He's facing a defense that gave up 40 last week.
And I'll try and figure out by the next show why I keep trying to call them the Clippers. Jay says, Hunt or Madison, Montgomery hurt. Sal, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it's make-believe, this Hunt usage right now. And Madison actually profiles out as a starting running back this week with Sincere McCormick on IR. He had 11 opportunities last week, and it's actually a good matchup. Like, it's a rare situation where it's going to be, a 1-point spread this week. The game should stay close, neutral to positive game script. Madison probably sees a dozen-plus touches.
All right, the next one comes in. Scott Pianowski, our own Scott Pianowski, asks grilled shrimp or coconut shrimp, Van Halen or Van Hagar? Boys, I got this. Stay out of my way for a second. Grilled shrimp better than coconut shrimp because you don't need to bread shrimp. It just makes it heavier. It's gross. And then Van Halen or Van Hagar? Look, let's not look at the band as a total. Let's just look at the front man. I think it's inarguable at this point that David Lee Roth is one of the great rock and roll front men of all time. So it's definitely Van Halen, not Van Hagar, even if the material was better under Sammy Hagar. See, I got this covered. We'll go. Now we're into the YouTube chat. Michael Harris says, Goff or Darnold? Used a lot of emojis, which you know I love. And do we trust Derrick Henry and flex or go with Addison, Allen, or Ford? Ask FFL. Andy Behrens, what do you think?
What the? I mean, yeah, we trust Derrick Henry in the flex. Derrick Henry's in the flex. He's not your RB1. That's amazing. I mean, it was one quiet week. Come on, you're gonna sit him for Jerome Ford? I would never do it. You are definitely playing Derrick Henry. And then the other one's close. I'm gonna go Jared Goff.
All right, and then Ed150 Arcade says, please help, guys. London or Bucky on flex and Darnold or Daniels PPR. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, the quarterback situation is definitely Jaden Daniels. I have him in a different tier compared to Sam Darnold this week. Darnold's game at Seattle, pretty low total, just 42 points. I'm not expecting much from either passing offense there. And I'm going to be going with Drake London. I get it. The Michael Penix situation might scare you. Kirk Cousins wasn't doing good in real life. He was keeping those wide receivers afloat, but I'm still going with the elite wide receiver talent.
Jason Kendall asks a simple one. Herbert or May? Andy Behrens?
Yeah, I could talk myself into Drake May in plenty of situations if the opponent were a little bit friendlier, right? But it's Buffalo. That's a very good pass defense. I'm sure you'll get a little something on the ground, but it's not going to be enough to make up the difference. Let's reconvene on Drake May next year when he has real receivers at his disposal. But I would play Justin Herbert tonight.
All right, the next question in the YouTube chat is from Gster G Universe. I don't know. It says, hey, guys, who do you think would be the better flex option this week between Pacheco, Jennings, or Shakir? What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, I'm going to stick to what I said earlier in a similar question revolving around Juwan Jennings. He's just the guy I want to go to right now. Like, Shakir's in a game where they're 14-point favorites. How much are they really going to have to throw in the second half? I question that. I do like Khalil Shakir, but in this situation, I'm going with Juwan Jennings. That should be a closer game. He should probably see another 7 to 8 plus targets. Give me Jennings.
By the way, everybody should go back and listen to the original I'm Just a Gigolo, not the Van Halen version. It's really uncanny how similar the versions are. God, it's just a nugget you didn't know. All right, remember, we are here Sunday morning at noon Eastern for our ugly sweater edition. May or may not already be 4 or 5 eggnogs in by the time we start that one. We'll see how it goes. We'll recap what happened tonight. We'll recap Saturday. And most importantly, we will save your semifinal roster as best as we can. It's chaos for everybody, but we'll be here from you from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of everybody that works their tails off to make this show happen, Sal Vetri, Andy Behrens, I'm Jason Fitz. Thank you so much for watching Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks.